Welcome everybody. I'm thinking we can start. So I'm Bruce Campbell. I'm the director of the research program Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security. It's a program of the International Agricultural Research Centers, and we work on climate change adaptation and mitigation in Latin America, Africa and Asia. Why are we interested in putting on a youth event? So let me give you two very quick personal stories. So when I started with CCAFS, I was interested in creating a scientific movement around climate change research. And I read a really interesting PhD study where the student had studied scientific movements around the world and had come up with 6 or 7 guidelines on what you had to do to create a scientific movement. And one of them concerned youth. It was that you had to have mixed teams of these old, wise, perhaps a bit conservative individuals together with the youth, young PhD students. And so this is why we think it's so crucial that we bring the youth into our research teams. Another personal story is, why do we want to focus our research also on youth? So back in Zimbabwe, we were interviewing smallholder farmers about their visions for their farms and their livelihoods. And surprisingly enough, many of them talked about education of their children and getting their children out of farming, because farming was such a difficult operation in those locations. And this is why we think we have to focus our research around how do you make farming a viable occupation? How do you bring the youth into it? How do you modernize the farming operations, less drudgery? How do you tackle rural-urban migration, youth unemployment as part of the research agenda? So that's why CCAFS is, well, that's why personally why I'm interested in the youth agenda and incorporating youth in research teams. So now we're going to start the program. I'm really excited to hear what our various speakers have got to say. We're going to use a Mentimeter. So I'm asking Doris if you could just explain the Mentimeter. Go ahead, Doris.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Bruce. So hi, everybody, and welcome. So we will start with a test question to test if Mentimeter is working. So please go to menti.com and use the code 5027797 and answer the question, where are you from? So please go to menti.com and use the code 5027797. We will also put the code in the chat. So in the meantime, can you please explain the program of today, Bruce?
Okay, I'm also trying to do your assignment for me as well. So the program today, we first will start with a keynote presentation from Victoria de Bourbon de Palma, and then we'll have 3 vlogs from youth movement leaders from Latin America, Africa, and South Asia. Each vlog is going to end with a question, which we will answer through Mentimeter. You can use the chat through the vlogs to ask questions, and so at the end of each vlog, we'll get the speakers to answer the questions. After the 3 vlogs, we're going to have a collaborated video from the three youth leaders, and then we'll end the program with me giving a few closing words. And do we have some answers?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So there's as to expected, a lot coming from the Netherlands, given this is where the conference is being hosted, but great that Australia is on the map despite the time of day. And Nairobi, Jakarta, Kenya, Amersfoort, another Dutch. Great. Okay, good. So we'll we'll start with Victoria. So Victoria is patron of Save the Children Netherlands, and she's also leads the food transformation of the World Benchmarking Alliance. She's responsible for the development and engagement of the food and agricultural benchmark. I hope Victoria is going to tell us about that as well. So go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bruce. And thank you so much for CCAF for inviting me here. I'm so looking forward to hearing from the other young speakers. And it's fantastic to see that it's such a global representation. Really looking forward to see more cities popping up. I'm personally calling in from Geneva in Switzerland. And as we're discussing climate, but then focused on food, I guess many of you, if you think of Switzerland, which food comes up in your mind? I'm guessing it's something like this. It's to do with chocolate, really delicious chocolate. And actually chocolate, as any food and ingredient, can be linked to lots of types of issues. I mean, unfortunately, chocolate is linked to the highest percentage of child labor in the agricultural sector. There's lots of child labor, unfortunately, not in this one, by the way, because this one is a really sustainable, good brand. But it's also linked to palm oil, to deforestation. It can be linked to super high sugar levels and mega portion size, which is bad for our health. And those three things are what I'm working on every day. It's about the health of people. It's about the health of the planet. And it's about working conditions. It's about equality. It's about food systems. It's about these three critical areas. And food really impacts all of those things, but not only chocolate, of course, but it's also apples that you eat, hopefully every day to keep healthy, or your fennel. How was your fennel made? Which farmer did produce it? Were there fertilizers involved? All of those questions, luckily we're living in a day and age where those can be answered and are being expressed, and companies are being more and more transparent about them, which is a great thing. And we should trace that. We should use that information. We should use that power of transparency to really make changes in our lives. Because, of course, here today we're discussing climate adaptation. And to be fair and honest with you, if we don't change the way we eat and the way we produce our food, we will never be able to reach the Paris Agreement. Only on GHG emissions, for example, the food sector is responsible for around 1/4 of GHG emissions globally. And it's not only those direct emissions, it's of course to do with deforestation, biodiversity loss, the overfishing of our oceans, fresh water depletion. Did you know that 70% of all the fresh water globally that we have is being used to grow our food? That's massive, massive amounts. And as consumers, we make choices every day. And so we can influence that. We can get ourselves more knowledgeable about where our food comes from, how it came to our plate, and really make conscious decisions for the better. But I'll get back to that later, what we can do personally in our day-to-day lives. But focusing on the Paris Agreement again, it has been signed over 5 years ago. And as Bruce introduced, I'm working on assessing company performances on things like the Paris Agreement. And actually in our latest research, we found that we had looked at 350 companies worldwide, the biggest food and agriculture companies, all the way from seed companies to supermarkets. And more than 50%, so it was around 190 major companies, did not disclose on any targets or commitments to reduce their GHG emissions. Just think about that. That's a huge amount. And what can we do to change that, to get them on board, to voice our concerns, and really just to incentivize them to make a change? How can we do that? By voting with our plates, by making conscious decisions in every bite, every meal, every diet plan that we do. And why I'm so happy to be here today is like Bruce alluded, you know, this youth movement, the fact that climate is on such a top priority at the moment comes as a result of the youth movement. And 2019, this great movement across the globe that really enlightened us and flipped the whole discussion around and made it the top priority. So it's, and actually, if you think about youth, of course, why does it resonate also with older people like I am, a bit older than you guys? Why does it resonate? Because it becomes tangible, right? It becomes really apparent. And because youth are the ones that are least responsible for the climate crisis, yet they will bear the greatest burdens. And on that, I'd like to reflect a bit on the work of Save the Children and the World Bank and the WHO and studies that they've conducted, and the risk of climate change for children, for youth, because climate change poses incredible risk for the increase of poverty. Climate change will probably push an additional 100 million people into poverty by 2030. But it's also the results that due to climate change probably we will have more extreme weather patterns. And did you know that 500 million children live in a flood-prone area? And many, many hundreds of millions of children are exposed to severe droughts and cyclones, that they live in an area which will be most affected by climate change. Another reason for concern is, of course, the possibility of increase in diseases such as malaria and dengue fever, which are already in many parts of the world an endemic, but will be even more widespread due to higher temperatures, humidity, and precipitation. But bringing it back to food and nutrition in this case, climate change also has the risk of pushing many, many more young people into undernourishment. And the projections predict that maybe around 95,000 additional deaths will occur on a yearly basis by children of 5 years or younger. So that's incredibly concerning. And I'm really glad that an organization like Save the Children is doing the best to mitigate those things and to ensuring that climate and environmental risks are involved in all of their programs that they do. But we've got such a long way to go. And it's great that these organizations are doing it, but probably you're just thinking, okay, what can I do now? What is the best action I can take? Well, as I said, it's about your plate. It's about what you eat. It's about what you do. And it's about what you share with your friends. Food is really the most powerful way that you can have a climate adaptation impact. I'll give you, just to finalize this, so I'll give you 3 tips. I've got 3 carrots here for you, and I'll eat one of them at the end of this presentation while I'm listening to all the others. So my number one tip would be to finish your plate. And I'm a mom of two small children. They are 4 and 6 years old. And I'm probably sounding a bit like your mom now, to finish your plate. But it is a very, very important issue. Over 1/3 of food gets wasted, and it doesn't end up being eaten. So it's such a huge shame that it's being produced. All of those water and energy and inputs and labor of people go in there, but people cannot enjoy it, and people are still going hungry today. So we really, really need to curb that, and we really need to stop food waste and food loss. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, of course, eating less meat, especially red meat. I was telling you about the water supply, that 70% of our fresh water is being used for food and agriculture. Well, guess what? To produce 1 kilogram of beef, you need 155 liters of water alone. And then, of course, there's the animal welfare aspect. There's the greenhouse gas emission aspect. So it's really all very, very good reasons to eat less meat, or maybe stop eating meat at all, or just a good balanced diet. And then number 3, my last tip for today, would be to eat seasonally, to eat locally, and to support farmers in your community. The more direct you can buy your products from the source, the healthier it will be for your own body, and the healthier it is for our planet. So that's it. And I heard that there's this greater big ambition to maybe get around 50 million. Bruce, is that still the plan, to get 50 million young people involved in this? If we can get 50 million young and maybe old people like me to get involved with this and to do one or hopefully all 3 of those things, our future will look a lot brighter. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Victoria. That was great. I mean, 3 things really resonate with me. The fact that we should be thinking about our own behavior. The fact that consumers can drive change as well. You're so important. And And then you mentioned the climate movement, for example. I mean, such a powerful force. And then I think the private sector piece that you also raised is really important, because we actually see the private sector as the crucial element to drive transformation of the food system. We need to bring funding to, for example, smallholder farmers, get them more involved in markets, but we also need to hold them accountable so that the work of the World Benchmarking Alliance, for example, is crucial. And also for youth to think about the accountability of where their sources are coming from. So that's great. Thanks a lot. So I'm next going to introduce you to Sebastian Pedraza Perez, and he's from the Young Professionals for Agriculture movement, YPARD. And Sebastian is going to show us his vlog now. So go ahead and start the vlog. I think, Stephanie, you're going to start it.
Hello guys, my name is Pedraza. I am from Colombia and I am part of the steering committee and coordinator from Latin America and the Caribbean of YPARD. YPARD is a global organization led by youth for youth. We look for empower rural youth and young professionals, facilitate their access to opportunities, and make it part of the different discussions and policy making about food systems.
YPARD believes that the transformation of food systems and climate mitigation requires multi-sectoral efforts. We promote the creation of clean agriculture initiatives using ICT. We also bring the voice of young people that participate in initiatives with different actors.
We will be traveling to Costa Rica, Trinidad and Tobago, and here to Colombia to know 3 different initiatives from young leaders, members of YPARD.
Our organic farm project, which was founded 2 years ago by 2 young professionals, which wanted to recover our food systems, and that's why today we grow our own food and have a local market for our diverse and organic products.
Hi, my name is Karen Bascom and I am the co-founder of the Agri-Recovery Kit. This is a support tool that is meant to help families and communities regrow a portion of their food, communicate and access knowledge after a disaster. So we initially created this to support the issues that occur after a hurricane. However, we then had COVID. So we are hoping that this tool can be used to help make households and food and communities and families more food secure.
I'm Carlos Castellanos, co-founder of cultivandofuturo.com. We created a digital platform mapping a growing network of more than 4,000 farmers in Colombia and Peru. We collect their socio-demographic and product use information. This means their farm location, their crops, and we can calendarize this information. With this big data, we provide it to organizations so they can have it at the time of formulating rural development programs with the inclusion of smallholder farmers who otherwise are invisible to them.
Latin American youth and YPARD are increasingly concerned about the impacts of our daily food choices in our food and climate systems. This could be achieved through many ways, including supporting local farmers, consuming agroecological and organic products, and limiting the consumption of highly processed foods. We count on you to raise awareness about our food choices potential to achieve food systems transformations.
Act locally.
Be part of the generation for change.
We are YPARD.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. And I should also say thank you for your, I understand you're all speaking English. That's really kind of you for the rest of us. I really like the diversity of topics that you've covered amongst your members. In your movement, Sebastian, what's the kind of activity level across the countries? Are many countries involved and individuals?
Yeah, YPARD, like I mentioned before, is a global organization that have more than 27,000 members around the world. and we have more than 70 chapters in, in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, and in Europe. And we believe that, like one of my colleagues mentioned, that climate change and rural development demands multi-sectoral efforts. That's why our members come from different disciplines, all in service to transform the food systems.
And when you're connecting, I mean, one of the key things of young people is driving change in terms of reaching policymakers. How do you connect young people to policymakers?
I think the first step is we need to make or understand, and the people understand how important it make that their voice be heard, And when we go to these places, I think policymakers is just connect because it's like a win-win partnership, Policymakers sometimes are trying to develop new strategies and new, methodologies to implement the projects in the territories, but in many occasions it doesn't work. That's why when you come, and attract, young leaders to these kind of spaces, it's so much easier because we understand our realities and what's the best way to, react and reach young people. So I think the first thing is try to build, a trust relationship and start to cooperate together to develop these initiatives, I think.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of, the problems are often not purely agricultural problems. You have to often deal with different sectors: agriculture, water, health, nutrition. In what ways do you support this work across the sectors?
I think, as I mentioned, we understand that the rural development implies, is more about not just about agriculture. It's the most important agriculture, but to bring, a development of the to the countryside and the rural areas, you need everything. You need doctors, you need good roads to try to bring our products into the cities. We need all. So when we put all together this knowledge, we can, have a change, and every young leader can give their perception and their knowledge, and we can work together to develop these initiatives. When we are thinking in a new project or in a new initiative, all put their ideas together and they put their experience together from their discipline. I think this is the main, I think, learning that we have got. I think it's better when you cooperate and not, add guys together and compete. I think young leader, we need to cooperate more and not compete, because we are the generation that have the responsibility to transform, the food system and stop, the climate, the problems that we have with the climate right now, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Sebastian. So we're going to go on to Victor Mugo. And Victor is from the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, and he's also got a vlog for us. Go ahead and start the vlog, Stephanie.
Hello, my name is Victor Mugo from the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network. And in addition to climate change being a global issue, it is also a youth issue, especially because for countries such as mine, which are heavily reliant on agriculture, agriculture really provides the greatest opportunity for decent employment opportunities for young people such as me. And in addition to that, climate change effects to our agriculture food systems really will determine whether we can provide decent employment opportunities for young people today and even in the future. And that is why building the resilience of our farmers, of young farmers, is really important to us. As the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, we are helping young people to transition from the normal agriculture to climate smart agriculture, because we do believe that this is an opportunity for them to get decent employment. We also believe that this is an opportunity for them to get involved and engaged in the climate action discourse. But also, we do believe that this is an opportunity for them to help our country become food secure and even food sovereign. And we do this in very many ways. I can just name of two. We work with students who are taking agricultural courses to change their perception about agriculture, but also to build their capacity on climate smart agriculture concepts so that they can be able to transition out of universities and out of their schools and out of their tertiary institutions to become young farmers, to become young agripreneurs who are leading profitable but also sustainable agricultural enterprises. As well, we usually also have the Climate Smart Agriculture Excellence Centers, which are practical demonstration farms of climate smart agriculture in practice. We do believe that agriculture is also quite practical, and so having these farms helps young people to come and learn from other young people about how they can be able to transition to climate smart agriculture. And so as young people, we really need to get involved in climate action and climate adaptation. This is because the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else is going to save it. And so we really needed to get involved in climate adaptation so that we can be able to secure our livelihoods, we can be able to create decent employment opportunities, we can help our countries to become food secure, but as well, we can help our planet to adapt to the changing climate. So how are you getting involved in climate adaptation? Let us know in the conference. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. That's great. Nice to see you in the farm. And here's the question from the Mentimeter. So I believe if you go into the Mentimeter now, you can answer this question. Let's see if it's working. Yeah, great. So perhaps I could ask you a question while we're waiting for the responses, Victor. It's really interesting that you've got these sort of demonstration farms where you bring other people to look at how it's going. In how many countries is that happening, and how do you actually go about it? Especially perhaps now it's very challenging with COVID, of course.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. So we thought about this concept, the Climate Smart Excellence Centers, as an opportunity for young people to see practically how climate smart agriculture can be able to improve their productivity as well as help them to adapt to the changing climate. And for this, we have seen, for especially where young people who are leading these farms are able to get more crops, are able to get healthy animals more than their counterparts. And so we believe that this is an opportunity for people to come and learn because agriculture really is practical. More than it being theoretical, it's more practical. So how can smallholder farmers really be able to know about all this information? And so we thought that this opportunity for climate smart agriculture excellence centers are a way where people can learn from people from within their locality who are implementing climate smart opportunities, management practices, technologies and innovations, and they are able to really be able to transform the agriculture and their livelihoods and in their areas.
Great, yeah. So just to remind everybody, please put in some questions in the chat box so then I can give them to the speakers. How do you, so the one challenge that we're always dealing with is local knowledge is super important. And we also need new knowledge to deal with the new realities. How do you incorporate and include local knowledge and yet also think about what new things need to be done?
Thank you so much. I think there's been a very big conflict between science and local knowledge for a long time, where, for example, in my locality, conservation agriculture has been taking place for a long time. And people thought that people were backward if they, they did activities that deal with conservation agriculture, such as zero tillage and such activities. But now we are seeing an opportunity where science really and local knowledge are coming together in a way in which people can be able to undertake agriculture in a sustainable way. So I believe that the future is integrating local knowledge because these smallholder farmers already have so much knowledge, but as well we can be able to incorporate new innovations and new management practices really that can be able to transform our food systems. And I believe that young people really are the vanguard for which we can use for transferring these new innovations and new practices, as well as incorporating local knowledge into their farming practices.
Okay. And Victor, just one other question before we look at the results. Are you engaging the youth through education systems, through the formal education systems?
Absolutely. And so we did a small internal survey at one of the universities where students are taking agricultural courses. And we noticed that there's a very big capacity gap, but also a motivation gap and a perception gap. We did this, we asked them to paint the first thing that comes to their mind once the word agriculture is mentioned. And what they drew was really interesting because they drew a very old man, just showing that agriculture is not for the youth. But as well, it was disheartening because these were young people who are undertaking agricultural courses, but the idea of a person in agriculture is not themselves. And then the old man was standing next to a grass-thatched house, which in the African setting is a symbolism of poverty. And then the old man was holding a garden hoe, commonly known as a djembe, from where I come from, just showing that there's very little space for innovation and mechanization in the agricultural space. And lastly, they drew the scorching sun, which shows that agriculture is difficult, is manual, is hard to do. And so we saw that there was really a big gap with the students who are going to become the next agricultural professionals. But as well, we know that all these students cannot land into paying jobs, and so they will also become agribusiness practitioners and farmers, as young farmers as well. So we thought that it was good to engage these students from where they are in these institutions so that they can be able to have a different perception of agriculture, taking young professionals there who can be able to speak about the experience, also having young farmers who have already succeeded, talking about their experience and how they've been able to make it. And so we have seen a very big difference between the students who we started with and the students who a few years later, there's already young people appreciating how agriculture is crucial in the economy, but as well, they can see a future for themselves in agriculture, even going forward.
Okay, great. Fantastic answer, Victor. So there's another few questions for you, Victor. If you've got access to the chat, perhaps you could answer them there because we have to move on. Okay. And this is our current answers were in terms of how you're getting involved in climate action, almost equal, but lots on reducing food waste and raising awareness. Great, we have to move on to the next one. So it's Niharika Singh. She's from BF Development Research Foundation, and we'll first have a vlog. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Niharika Singh from India. For this particular workshop, I will be representing my region, South Asia. Before I start, I would like to thank CCAFS South Asia and my organization, BIF Development Research Foundation, to give me this wonderful opportunity. I'm grateful and honored to be a part of this. Short vlog, I will be sharing with you how CCAFS and BIF Development Research Foundation, they came together to implement and to promote climate smart agriculture practices. For this intervention, small holder farmers, especially those who were young, they were selected, and women capacity building of women farmers was also one of the major focus. So for this major focus was on introducing climate smart technologies such as water smart technology, community-based water management, um, carbon smart practices, nutrient smart agriculture. So all of this was promoted, and this intervention was successful in reaching out to um, more than 10,000 young farmers, and this was actually a very successful project. So in the context of South Asia, which is according to Climate Change Vulnerability Index, is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world. So similar interventions of climate smart agriculture can be adopted by South Asian nations, so that a healthy food system can be can emerge and can adapt to the climate-induced calamities and climate-induced uncertainties. So at last, I would like to share with you a few mitigation measures which I believe if you and I practice can help and contribute in the mitigation and adaptation approach. So the first one is reducing your food wastage, because the food we waste, which goes to the landfill, it rots and it produces methane. The second one would be reduce your meat intake. I'm not asking you to become a vegan, but you can just include more plant-based diets and reduce your meat intake, because it will actually reduce your carbon footprint. The third one, which is very important, I believe, is educate and inculcate environmental values into your younger generation, because this will in future create um, an environmentally conscious generation, and this generation will come up with wonderful innovations, I'm sure, very helpful innovations which will help in this process. So this is something which you can practice at your level. At last, I would like to ask a question to end this vlog. That do you think you can try a 1 week no food wastage challenge? Please comment, please share your answers. And thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot. So the next question is there already. Can you complete a 1 week no food waste challenge? That was also one of Victoria's tips for us as well. So let's see what happens on the answers of that. Meanwhile, please write in some questions for Niharika. And actually, I see one here. How can a young person become a champion and inspire others?
Hi everyone. So thank you for that question. So I think a young person, just by spreading awareness, can actually become a champion, because spreading awareness is actually the agent of change. So that is the first thing. And then, like I said in my blog, that educating the young generation people to think about the future, to actually look into the problems from all the perspective, not only a single perspective, but also looking it into a holistic perspective, like social problems related to it, like social racism, which is attached to it, environmental refuges, and all these problems which are coming into. So that is something which can help and inspire you.
So I see another question. To what extent are young people involved in the current strike in India? And is there a climate connection to the strike, or that's no such, no connection?
So I think a lot of people are getting aware, but if you see, there is still a scope of creating awareness among the youth. So there, people are not making it a personal issue. So the problem is we need to use behavioral strategy to make it a personal issue. So that is something which our education policy is coming up with. They are inculcating. They are trying to. They're trying to indulge in such practices through which environmental values can be inculcated into the kids, and then they can become environmentally conscious. So that is how we are planning.
Great. So we have to go on. Yes, the answers. So Victoria, this is good news. It looks like it's easy and maybe easy. And there's very few no ways. So that's fantastic.
There's always the first step.
Yes, yeah. And just to remind Victor that there's quite a few questions for you in the chat. If you can perhaps have a look at the chat and answer them. So let's move on to the last video. It's a collaboration of the three speakers. Go ahead, Stephanie.
It's changing. 19 shows how fragile our food system. So make the difference, make a change. It's responsibility of all of us. All of us can make the difference with our food, you know, with the choices that we can about what we eat and when and where we buy our food. So we challenge you to change your lifestyle and think before, you know, buy your food and who eat. I think that this decision that we take every day about this, our diets can make a big impact in our climate. So we invite you, you know, to think before about your decisions and also to try to join to different initiatives and projects and youth movements in your communities that are trying to make the difference because we can make more, you know, together than just alone.
I believe that the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will be able to save it. And so as young people, we have an opportunity to create a future for ourselves and for the next generations to come. And for young farmers, I would really ask that we change the way we do our agriculture. And I would really implore that we undertake climate smart agriculture because of the numerous benefits that it has for us and for our planet in building our resilience, in creating decent employment opportunities, and even in helping us to adapt to the changing climate. And so as young people, we have the opportunity to transform the way agriculture is done. We have an opportunity to do things differently. We have an opportunity to feed the world. And this really is our time to make a difference. And so I'll really implore that we change the way we do agriculture.
I think education is a very powerful weapon and which can bring a change into the society. And I think this is really relevant in the context of climate change. So if we make people aware through education, that will be really impactful. So I want to challenge all the viewers, the participants, to come up with an educational plan to educate your people around you regarding the issues, climate issues, and
we challenge you to post in your social media accounts like Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram a picture of your meal or a healthy way, you know, to contribute to food systems and to also climate change. You can try also to post a picture buying locally of having a good diet.
So for all of you at home, what are you doing to change the planet? What are you doing to adapt to the changing climate? And so you can post your photo and also show us what you are doing using the hashtag Youth for Climate. We will be happy to engage with you and to see what you are doing. Looking forward to what you'll do.
So I challenge you to come up with the idea, an educational purpose video to educate people around you about the environmental issues and come up with solutions for the same. So, yeah, post your videos and don't forget to follow hashtag Youth for Climate.
Great, thank you very much. So in the chat, there's a Youth for Climate hashtag, and they've given you various challenges. So let's go for it. We wrote a report, Transforming Food Systems Under Climate Change, and one of the 11 actions was that we have to reach 10 million youth by 2025 in terms of social movements. When I presented that at a conference, the youth said it was much too unambitious, and they said 50 million. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with another one who said 100 million. So in the next coming months, let's get 100 million youth behind a campaign dealing with food systems, climate change, nutrition, food system transformation. Thank you all very much for today's presentation. Thank you, Victoria, Victor, Sebastian, Nierika, for all the effort that you've put into your presentations and vlogs. Thanks a lot, everybody.